In a sunny valley, nestled between hills, was a village. This village was a picturesque place, where the sun always seemed to shine a little brighter, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers. The hills that surrounded the village were lush and green, providing a natural barrier that made the village feel like a hidden gem, untouched by the outside world. The villagers were happy people. They farmed the land with dedication and care, ensuring that their crops were always bountiful. They sang songs that echoed through the valley, filling the air with joy and laughter. In the evenings, they gathered around bonfires to tell stories, passing down legends and tales from generation to generation. Their lives were simple, yet full of contentment and harmony. Beyond the hills, far away, lived a giant. This giant was a mysterious figure shrouded in myth and legend. The villagers had heard tales of his immense size and strength, but no one had ever ventured beyond the hills to see him for themselves. The hills acted as a natural boundary, separating the peaceful village from the unknown world beyond. He was taller than the trees. The giant's height was said to be so great that he could see over the tallest trees in the forest. His presence was felt even from a distance, as the trees seemed to bow in his direction, acknowledging his dominance over the land. He was bigger than any house. The villagers' homes, though sturdy and well-built, would have seemed like mere toys in comparison to the giant's colossal size. The thought of such a massive being was both awe-inspiring and terrifying to the villagers. The villagers had only heard whispers about him. These whispers were often shared in hushed tones, as if speaking too loudly might summon the giant from his distant abode. The stories varied, with some describing him as a gentle giant who meant no harm, while others painted him as a fearsome creature to be avoided at all costs. Nobody had ever seen him. Despite the many tales and rumors, no villager had ever laid eyes on the giant. This only added to the mystery and intrigue surrounding him. The children of the village would often play games pretending to be the giant, while the adults would exchange knowing glances, aware of the fine line between myth and reality. One day the ground trembled. It was a day like any other, with the villagers going about their daily routines, when suddenly the earth beneath their feet began to shake. The tremors were unlike anything they had ever experienced, causing a wave of panic to spread through the village. The birds flew away scared. The giant was coming. As the ground continued to shake, the villagers looked to the sky and saw flocks of birds taking flight, their cries filling the air. It was then that they realized the stories were true. The giant, the mysterious figure from beyond the hills, was making his way towards the village. The peaceful valley was about to witness a moment that would be remembered for generations to come. The villagers were scared. They hid in their homes. They peeked through their windows. What would the giant do? The giant walked slowly. He looked at the village houses. He looked at the fields. He looked sad. The villagers whispered to each other. "He looks scary," they said. "He's going to hurt us," they cried. The giant heard their whispers. He frowned. He wished they weren't scared. The river that flowed by the village was very important. It gave them water for their crops. But one day a storm came. The river flooded. The bridge broke. The villagers were sad. How would they get to their fields? How would they get food? The giant saw the broken bridge. He saw the sad villagers. He knew he had to help. Carefully, the giant walked into the river. The water only reached his knees. He picked up a huge log. He placed it across the river. A new bridge! The villagers watched from their windows. They were surprised. The giant wasn't scary. He was helping them. One by one, the villagers came out of their homes. They looked at the giant with wonder. He smiled shyly. From that day on, the giant visited the village often. He would come down from the mountains, his enormous footsteps echoing through the valley, signaling his arrival. The villagers, who once hid in fear, now eagerly awaited his visits. They had come to see him not as a threat, but as a friend and protector. He helped the villagers in many ways. His strength was unmatched, and he used it to assist in tasks that were impossible for the villagers to do alone. Whether it was lifting heavy logs to build new homes or carrying large sacks of grain during the harvest, the giant was always there to lend a hand. He used his strength to move heavy rocks. The village was surrounded by rocky terrain, and clearing paths had always been a daunting task. But with the giant's help, new roads were built and old ones were maintained with ease. The villagers marveled at how effortlessly he could lift boulders that would take a dozen men to move. He used his height to reach high branches. The fruit trees in the village bore the juiciest fruits, but they often grew too high for the villagers to reach. The giant, with his towering stature, would pluck the ripest fruits from the highest branches and share them with the children, who giggled with delight. The villagers were no longer scared. They had come to trust the giant, seeing him as a gentle soul despite his intimidating size. Children would run up to him, tugging at his large fingers, and he would smile down at them, his eyes twinkling with kindness. They realized the giant was kind and gentle. He had a heart as big as his stature, always looking out for the well-being of the villagers. He would listen to their stories, share in their joys, and comfort them in times of sorrow. His presence brought a sense of security and warmth to the village. They learned that appearances could be deceiving. The giant, who once seemed like a fearsome creature, was in fact a kind-hearted being. The villagers and the giant would sit together by the fire, exchanging stories of their lives. The giant would tell tales of the mountains, of the stars he could almost touch, and the villagers would share their own stories of the land and their ancestors. They brought him fresh bread and fruit. As a token of their gratitude, the villagers would prepare feasts for the giant. They would bake the finest bread and gather the freshest fruits, presenting them to him with smiles and laughter. The giant, in turn, would share his own food from the mountains, introducing the villagers to new flavors and delicacies. They sang songs with him. They told him stories. The village was filled with music and laughter whenever the giant was around. They would gather in the evenings, singing songs of old and creating new ones, celebrating their unique friendship. The giant's deep voice would harmonize with the villagers, creating a melody that echoed through the valley, a testament to the bond they had formed. One day, the giant heard the villagers laughing. The sound of their joy echoed through the fields, filling the air with a sense of warmth and community. It was a beautiful day, with the sun shining brightly and a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the trees. The giant, who had been feeling lonely and isolated, was drawn to the sound of laughter like a moth to a flame. They were playing a game. The villagers had gathered in the open field to enjoy a day of fun and games. Children and adults alike were participating, their faces lit up with excitement and joy. The game they were playing involved a ball, and it seemed to be a favorite among the villagers. They were divided into teams, cheering each other on and celebrating every successful throw. They were trying to throw a ball over a tall tree. The tree stood majestically in the middle of the field, its branches reaching high into the sky. It was a challenging task, but the villagers were determined. They took turns, each one trying their best to get the ball over the tree. Laughter erupted every time someone missed, but it was all in good fun. The giant wanted to play too. He had been watching from a distance, his heart longing to join in the fun. He had always been shy and unsure of himself, but the sight of the villagers having so much fun gave him the courage to step forward. He approached the group, his large frame casting a shadow over the field. He gently picked up the ball. The villagers watched in awe as the giant, with his enormous hands, carefully lifted the ball from the ground. He handled it with such care, as if it were a delicate flower. The children giggled, and the adults smiled, welcoming the giant into their game. He threw it high in the air. With a powerful yet controlled motion, the giant sent the ball soaring into the sky. Everyone watched in amazement as it climbed higher and higher, defying gravity with its incredible ascent. It went so high it disappeared into the clouds. The villagers gasped in astonishment, their eyes wide with wonder. They had never seen anything like it. The balls seemed to vanish into the heavens, leaving everyone speechless for a moment. The villagers laughed and clapped. Their initial shock quickly turned into joyous applause. They cheered for the giant, their laughter ringing out even louder than before. It was a moment of pure, unbridled happiness. They had never had so much fun. The game continued, and the giant became an integral part of it. The villagers welcomed him with open arms, and together they created memories that would last a lifetime. The field was filled with laughter, and the giant felt a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. The giant laughed with them. He felt happy. For the first time in his life, he felt truly accepted and loved. The laughter in the fields was not just a sound. It was a symbol of the bond that had formed between the giant and the villagers. It was a day they would all remember fondly, a day when laughter brought them together. As the sun began to set, the giant knew it was time to go. He looked at the villagers. He had grown fond of them. He wanted to give them a gift. He walked towards the mountains and came back with a giant pumpkin, bigger than any house. The villagers were amazed. They had never seen such a big pumpkin. It was a gift from their giant friend. That night, the villagers had a feast. They made pumpkin soup, pumpkin pie, and roasted pumpkin seeds. They sang and danced under the stars. The giant sat on a hill watching them. He smiled. He had found a place where he belonged. He had found friends who appreciated him for who he was, and all it took was a little bit of kindness. The story of the kind giant teaches us an important lesson. It teaches us that kindness can conquer fear. It can break down walls and build bridges. Don't judge someone by their appearance. A kind heart can be found in the most unexpected places. Always choose kindness, and you'll be amazed by the difference it can make.